Welcome back, everyone. Stage 4. His name is Zero. So the episode kicks things off shortly after the end of the previous episode, which, just for a refresher, ended with Suzaku being taken into custody as the individual responsible for killing Prince Clovis. Even though him doing that would have been pretty much impossible, seeing as he was literally out there fighting for Britannia while the prince was being killed. Like, it's actually kinda ridiculous, because there's gotta be all kinds of proof that would support the fact that he wasn't even in the vicinity of the prince when he was murdered, as well as witnesses that could attest to that. But nah, we got a narrative we're trying to spin here, so yeah. Anyway, we find Suzaku being interrogated by old bitch-ass Jeremiah, who's not only claiming that Suzaku killed the prince, but that he also killed several members of the royal guard, of whom I'm assuming he's referring to these guys, which... Man, it's so frustrating because they were the ones that tried to kill him. Like, this is just nasty work. But as far as the interrogation goes, it's just a whole bunch of bullshit. With Jeremiah pulling out the gun that he claims Clovis was shot with, it's not actually the gun. Followed by him saying that they found Suzaku's fingerprints on it. No, they didn't. And then he says something that kind of threw me off.
You're the eldest child of Japan's last acting prime minister.
And the reason that threw me off is because it kind of implies that Suzaku might have siblings. But, he doesn't. He definitely doesn't. And after checking out the original subtitles for the Japanese version, it seems as though it's a bit of a translation error. And I mean, it's not a big deal because it's not technically wrong. I mean, my daughter is technically my oldest daughter. She just so happens to also be my youngest daughter, too. But I guess the more important part of that piece of dialogue was the fact that Suzaku is the son of the last acting prime minister of Japan. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the political hierarchy in Japan, it means that Suzaku's dad was the head of the government. And if you're confused by that, given him of all people being an honorary Britannian, well, don't worry, because we'll talk more about that a little later in this video. But anyway, after Jeremiah lobs his accusations, Suzaku rightfully calls it out for what it is. Some bullshit.
You're making a mistake. I have never even laid eyes on that gun.
But unfortunately, all that gets him is a one-way ticket to the floor as they kick his chair from beneath him. But anyway, this whole interrogation is more performative than anything, because as far as they're concerned, he's guilty, and there's absolutely nothing he could say or do that would change that. In fact, realistically, he's probably better off not saying anything, because when he tries defending himself again, this happens.
You're wrong. I've done nothing.
Yeah, they kicked this man in the face, and if the blurry transition is any indication, I think they might have actually knocked him out with that one, which I just... Fucking hell. Anyway, from there we transition to a much more relaxed setting, as we see Lelouch and his sister having a conversation while he gets her ready for bed.
Lelouch?
What is it?
It wasn't true what the news said, was it?
And I could see why she would ask that, because that's gotta be crazy to hear. Though, I imagine if she were to find out who really killed him, it would probably be even more jarring. But anyway, in response to this, Lelouch tells her not to worry, because Suzaku would never do something like that, and that the military has just made a terrible mistake. Now, from there we transition back to the insurgents, where we see Tamaki and Oogi having a conversation. Well, really, I'd argue that it's less a conversation and more so just Tamaki yelling at Oogi.
That's why we should have issued a statement sooner. We could have taken credit for it.
So, that doesn't make any sense. Like, y'all didn't know that the prince was dead, so how could you have taken credit for it beforehand? Like, what? What statement could you have issued? That the Britannians came in, wiped a bunch of y'all out, and then decided to stop and let the rest of y'all go? Because without the part about the prince being murdered, you don't really have anything to take credit for. Like, it's actually really weird for him to have said that. And it'd be one thing if maybe Lelouch had informed them off screen somehow about the fact that the prince was dead, which I don't even know how he would, honestly. But if he did, then I feel like that would have come up during the conversation that Oogi and Colin had in the previous episode. But anyway, hearing Tamaki say this did make me think about something else though, and it's in regard to what I had mentioned in the previous video, regarding how bad it would look for the Britannians if they disclosed the fact that the prince had been killed by a ragtag group of rebels. and how it would ultimately serve to bolster the insurgents' position as a legitimate threat to the Empire. The thing about that is, and what I didn't consider at the time, is the fact that in using an honorary Britannian as a scapegoat, it ultimately serves to do exponentially more damage to the lives of all Japanese people, insurgent or otherwise. Because, like I said before, the purists are looking to get rid of the honorary Britannian program in its entirety. And in doing that, it's going to hurt a lot of just regular Japanese folk who are living their lives in the Tokyo settlement. Like, life is already shitty for some of them, and if they're not even going to be considered honorary Britannians anymore, then it'll arguably get even worse. And hell, the more I think about it, the more it makes sense to have gone out of their way to choose Suzaku specifically. Like, according to the dude from episode 1, Suzaku apparently has outstanding military achievements. So it's like, if one of the best honorary Britannians is capable of such a heinous crime, a crime that he was only able to accomplish given his status as an honorary Britannian and the access that it allowed him, then what does that say about the rest of them? So yeah, when you look at it like that, it's actually really smart on the purist part. But to make our way back to what Tamaki is saying, if there was a statement to be made that could have somehow credited them for the prince's death, then it seems as though Oogi was the one that held off on issuing it, which I would argue kinda speaks to his ineptitude as a leader. But to be fair, he didn't ever ask for this position. It was thrust upon him in arguably the worst way, given the fact that he inherited it from his dead friend, Naoto. And also, Oogi's not stupid, though some people might disagree with that, but he understands that he has shortcomings that he may not necessarily be able to overcome.
Naoto, I'm not cut out for this. I'm no leader.
However, luckily for him, he may not be burdened with the title of leader for much longer. Anyway, from there we switch back to Lelouch and this old guy from the first episode. He was actually the guy who was playing chess on Lelouch's behalf before he showed up. And apparently they have some kind of relationship. Like, I'm imagining he helped set up the chess match between Lelouch and that nobleman. And now it looks like he's helping Lelouch out with something else. Though, this time, it's not necessarily by choice.
Yes, everything is just as you requested. Once the slide system is in order, it's all yours.
And while this scene is super quick, it is noteworthy in a way that I never really took note of before. Because what they're referring to is something that'll actually be revealed later in this episode. So I'll just come back and reference this again when we get to it. Now from there we switch to Lloyd and Cecile as they discuss Suzaku's, or I guess more so the Lancelot's, fate.
Oh, we've lost the most crucial part of the equation.
Can we do it without him?
Don't I wish?
And yeah, as it turns out, Suzaku fits into the Lancelot like a glove, in a way that no one else really does. And don't get me wrong, this isn't an Evangelion situation where pilots are bonded with their mechs through some sort of biochemistry. No, it's more so that he's just that good. And while they likely could find someone else to pilot it, it just seems stupid to have to do that when there's a great pilot right here. But I also want to point out the fact that, honestly, Lloyd doesn't really care all that much what happens to Suzaku. He's really just more so concerned about the fact that he won't have anyone capable of piloting his nightmare anymore. Now, that being said, when it comes to Cecile, she is much more empathetic to Suzaku, especially since she knows that he wasn't responsible for what happened. And since she's also aware that Lloyd has a pretty decent level of influence, she goes on to tell him,
You should tell them that. Perhaps they'll let Suzaku go.
But Lloyd tells her that there's really nothing to be done about it, specifically because Suzaku is an honorary Britannian, and the whole mood surrounding the honorary Britannian program, well, it ain't where it should be in regard to making requests like that, especially for an honorary Britannian that's being accused of killing a prince. Like, I imagine that'd be a hard sell for even a full-blooded Britannian.
Their view is one of their own can never be a criminal.
Which is insane, because all of y'all should be convicted of war crimes for the shit you pulled back in Shinjuku. But, I mean, whatever. They know they're full of shit. They just don't care. But yeah, Cecile then just straight up asked Lloyd,
And what about Suzaku?
His fate's all but decided.
And yeah, unless something is done, Suzaku's a dead man. For real this time. Anyway, after that, we transition to Ashford Academy. And while the conversation had here isn't really all that important, I did want to take note of something that I thought was kind of cool from a visual standpoint. And it's actually super minor, but as Lelouch is conversing with his friends here, we see him look off screen and kind of smirk a little. But it's super subtle, like up until this rewatch, I never actually noticed it. But it turns out what he was smirking at was Colin, and the fact that she was walking off on her own, likely headed off campus. Because, as you might remember, in the previous episode, Lelouch told her,
1600 hours the day after tomorrow. The observation deck at Tokyo Tower.
And that's exactly where Colin is headed right now. So, yeah, I thought that it was kind of cool that we could see him acknowledging the fact that she was doing what he wanted, even if it was, again, very subtle. Also, I'm not sure how many of you are aware, but there are these little shorts called audio and picture dramas, and I plan on referencing them from time to time when appropriate. Essentially, they're like mini episodes that occur between actual episodes. For example, there's one that's titled Stage 3.25, and it takes place shortly after the end of the previous episode, where we see the girls hanging out and getting to know each other a little better. And if you're wondering why I'm not showing any footage of this particular interaction, well, it's because I am not trying to get age restricted here. Because, well, you can go watch it yourself. It's actually just ridiculous in terms of fan service. Like, it's borderline pornography. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because at one point, Millie and Colin have this interaction.
Oh, Colin, are you free the day after tomorrow, after school?
The day after tomorrow? Oh no, I can't. I'm busy then. At 4 p.m., I'm going to Tokyo
And I really like the added bit at the end where she starts coughing, kind of playing up the whole I'm sick thing that she has going on. It's cool. And really, aside from all the fan service, this mini episode serves to give us more insight into the relationship between Millie and Nina. Fucking Nina. Like, it turns out that they've actually been friends for longer than anyone else in their little group. Like, since they were little kids. And apparently their grandfathers were in business together, manufacturing nightmare frames. And I could go further with it, but a lot of it isn't super relevant just yet. But best believe I will be calling on these picture and audio dramas from time to time to give additional insight on things. Anyway, from there we transition to Tokyo Tower, or I guess what's left of it. And I just want to say that this shot is actually really significant. And that's because of what Tokyo Tower represents in Japan. Well, at least what I'm assuming it means in this version of Japan, because obviously the timeline here is a little different. But going off what Tokyo Tower means in our universe, it's essentially revered as a symbol of Japan's socioeconomic prosperity and rebirth in a post-World War II era. Like, it genuinely means something to the people of Japan. And now we see that it's just been partially destroyed as a result of the Britannian invasion. And what makes it worse is that Tokyo Tower is also a tourist destination. So people will come and visit it the way they would the Eiffel Tower or the Empire State Building. So, as such, they have like this little museum or exhibition that provides some historical context about the nation of Japan, or rather, the colony known as Area 11. Because as we make our way into the Tokyo Tower exhibit, we hear this.
Britannia's resounding victory over Japan opened the unenlightened nation's eyes to its true place in today's world order. Since then, the Empire and Area 11 have walked hand in hand down the road to revival. And
again, I just fall back to Winston Churchill. History is written by the victors, because, I mean, there's just so much wrong with all of that. Like, for one, unenlightened? Like, eat dog shit, bro. Then you have her saying that now they know their true place in today's world order, which essentially implies that they belong under Britannia's heel. And then there's the sugar-coated depiction of Britannia and Area 11 walking hand in hand down the road to revival, which just reminds me of how in American schools they downplay the violence that took place when the settlers initially came to the Americas. But also, lastly, I guess on a lighter note, I love that the images in the museum are just the same static images that they showed at the beginning of episode 1. But yeah, I just thought all of that was pretty interesting and was worth discussing for just a minute. Now, at this point, we see Colin strolling through the observation deck looking for the guy that she heard on the phone. However, it's looking like he's not here. But you know who is here? Oogi and some of the other members of their crew, a couple of guys named Yoshida and Sugiyama. And they're actually having a conversation about who it is they think told Colin to come here.
It was Oogi who contacted us, wasn't it?
So, a couple of things here. One, it seems like they believe the lie that's being propagated by the purists too. And that makes sense. I mean, given who Suzaku's father was, it would actually make a lot of sense that he might be the one who killed the prince. But that leads me to my second point, which is they don't know that he's the one that was piloting the Lancelot. In fact, outside of a few people on Britannia's side, no one really knows about it. And that's going to be hella important as we make our way through the series. But yeah, from there we discuss whether or not they should leave since Suzaku has been taken into custody, bringing up the idea that Suzaku might have told the Britannians about this meeting. But their conversation is ultimately interrupted when they hear this.
Colin Stotfeld, one of your personal effects has been turned in at the kiosk on the observation deck.
Now, from there, Colin goes to the front desk and it turns out that there's a phone waiting for her. And when she walks off with it, she receives a call from someone by the name of Zero. But something else I wanted to point out before we get to the phone call itself is the fact that the camera cuts to Oogi and the others for a second, and we hear him say,
"There's no debating it. Life is better here thanks to Prince Clovis."
And I love that they included that, because obviously we know that he doesn't believe anything that he's saying, but it kind of goes to show you how he and the others need to blend in and adhere to the status quo. Like, just the fact that they're a group of 11s walking around a place that's meant for tourists means that they're more likely to be stopped or harassed if they stick out. But by walking around talking about how great Britannia has been to what once was their nation, they're less likely to be bothered. But yeah, from there, Colin goes ahead and answers the phone.
"I want you to board the outbound train on Loop Line 5 and bring your friends."
What?
And I just love how smooth he was with that last part. Like, I don't know if y'all remember, but in the previous episode, he made a point to say,
"Come alone."
So him saying that last part means that he knows that she brought other people, which just kind of bolsters his whole presence, really. Like, he seems to know everything all the time, and that'll help in regards to getting people to lean into the idea of following him. But anyway, from there we switch to Jeremiah and Valletta as we drop in on them having a meeting with Diethard, who you might remember from the first episode. Also, this guy named Lord Kuehl is hanging out in the background, though he doesn't actually say anything during this scene. And honestly, there's not too much going on in this scene. I mean, they briefly talk about Prince Clovis's memorial broadcast and how Diethard did a good job throwing it together so quickly. Jeremiah also comments on how he didn't really care for how weepy it was, which I guess implies that Diethard leaned into the more sympathetic side of Clovis's character, which makes sense, given it's a memorial program, but maybe Jeremiah was hoping for something that would more so stoke the flames in regard to getting people angry at the 11s for having killed him. Anyway, outside of that, the conversation is really more so here to formally introduce us all to Diethard and the role that he plays in this world. And if it wasn't clear already, he's a producer for a television network. Kind of like Demigawa. Kind of a lot like Demigawa now that I think about it, but just like smarter? Because Diethard's very intelligent, as we'll come to find out. And hell, we can kind of see elements of that sprinkled into this conversation, because at one point, Jeremiah asks Diethard for a favor, claiming that tomorrow Suzaku will be transferred to his court-martial, and Diethard immediately responds by saying,
"We should line the road with good, patriotic Britannians." And
the fact that he just instinctively knew what Jeremiah was looking for and what would play well with audiences speaks to his ability to read people. Like, even earlier in this conversation, after Jeremiah commented on how the memorial program was too weepy, Diethard responded by saying,
"Well, the masses tend to like tearjerkers, Your Excellency."
And I know it doesn't seem like much, but understanding what moves people, what drives people, what people will react to, and how they will react to it, these are all important things in regard to being able to manipulate people. But more on that later. Anyway, the scene ends with Valletta informing Jeremiah that some of the 11s look to Suzaku as a hero because they believe that he killed one of their oppressors. And as such, there might be some people who want to try and rescue him. But Jeremiah basically says that he welcomes that shit, that he wants all the smoke, because if anyone tries anything,
they'll be executed on the spot.
Now, from there we head back to Colin, Oogi, and the others as we see Zero calling Colin again.
Face forward and look to your right. What do you see?
The Britannian city. It was stolen away from us and built on our sacrifice.
And on the left?
I see our city, remnants of a desiccated city after the Britannians sucked it dry.
Good answer.
And this does a great job of figuratively and literally painting a picture of the current state of things in Area 11. And I love that it's presented in such an easily digestible way. Like, look to your right and look to your left and tell me what you see. Like, it's such a simple yet effective way of showcasing the difference between how the Britannians are living versus how the Japanese are forced to live. And what I love even more is how all of this is just very intentional. For us as the viewers, sure, but also for Colin, Oogi, Sugiyama, and Yoshida. Like, Lelouch is trying to paint a very vivid picture. First, by having them go to Tokyo Tower, which, as I said before, was a symbol of Japan's socio-economic growth as a country, which is now half destroyed and being used as a place to regurgitate bullshit Britannian propaganda. To then having them get on this train so that they can really soak in the difference between what the Japanese people were used to create versus what they have to call their own. Like, it's meant to evoke something, to get them riled up, you feel me? And yeah, I just really wanted to point that out because it speaks to how much thought Lelouch put into this little tour before ultimately revealing himself. But anyway, after Colin gives her answer, Zero tells her to make her way to the front of the train, and so she and the guys all head that way. And something I wanted to point out is, as they're making their way to the front of the train, we can see that the people in this cab have all been geassed. And the reason he did that is so that no one would interrupt their conversation. And yeah, as they gather around the cab, they ask him if he's the person they're looking for. And he does... he does this.
We're talking to you.
I swear this man is so damn dramatic. Like, they were dead ass asking him questions to the point of getting frustrated by his lack of response, and he just stays quiet for damn near 20 seconds just so that he could time that shit right and spin around at the perfect moment. Like, he's just too much sometimes, but still, I love it. I also really love the costume. It's kind of ridiculous given how serious and dark the story can be at times, but for some reason, it just works. It's striking and it stands out. I love the shoulder pads, the cape, the cravat, the oversized Akatsuki-esque collar, and of course, the helmet. It's all just super badass and I dig it. However, I might be alone in that sentiment.
Oh, come on, there's no way it was this Joker.
Which, fair? I mean, it is a lot. Like, if I was them in this situation where I'm out here fighting for my life and this dude just prances on in wearing some fucking Power Rangers ass getup, I'd probably be pretty annoyed too. Like, sir, is this a fucking game to you? But yeah, Zero goes on to tell them that he wanted them to really understand the difference between the settlement and the ghetto. And Oogi's like, yeah, no, bro, we get it. I don't need you to explain our suffering to us. This has been our reality for the better part of a decade. We don't need to be reminded of it, which is actually a really fair response. He then goes on to add that that's the whole reason that they resist against Britannia. And Zero counters by saying,
"You're wrong. Britannia will not fall to terrorism."
Fall?
And I love this moment, specifically Oogi's response, because the idea of Britannia falling had never even crossed his mind. Like, they're fighting to get their country back, sure, but I feel like deep down he understands that the idea of winning is, like, really kind of impossible. Like, Britannia has done this same thing to at least 10 other areas. Because I don't know if that was clear or not, but Area 11 isn't a symbolic number or anything. It's simply meant to designate that Japan is the 11th area that Britannia has laid claim to. And here you can actually see a list of different areas that they've acquired over time, with more to come, unfortunately. But anyway, the idea of winning is just super unrealistic. In reality, what they're doing is simply refusing to go down without a fight. They're raging against the dying of the light. But here this person is, confidently acting as though the fall of Britannia might be a real possibility. Especially as he goes on to add,
"You should know your enemy. It is not people, but Britannia itself."
Okay, so let's kind of break this down a little bit, because I imagine there's a few reasons why Lelouch is saying this. Like, for starters, Lelouch's initial introduction to this group was with Nagata saying,
"Colin, let's use it here, why not?"
Implying that he actually considered unleashing what he believed to be a WMD in a place filled with civilians. Furthermore, despite Colin ultimately responding by saying that they shouldn't release it because it'd be a bloodbath, ironically enough, 2 days later she was ready to spill Lelouch's blood while she was taking a bath. Get it? Because it's a blood bath. Whatever. Anyway, as we went over last time, that would have been a stupid thing to do for a whole bunch of reasons. And yet she was ready to do it because, as she had said moments before he walked in,
"I hate Britannians."
And all of that on top of the fact that the whole Shinjuku incident was started because they haphazardly set off explosives in what honestly looks like a regular building. Like, this doesn't look like a military base or anything. And honestly, I'm doubting that it would be, given the fact that Clovis was trying to keep this little side hustle of his on the QT. And Lelouch doesn't know about the fact that that was an accident. So from his perspective, it looks like they did it on purpose. So yeah, 3 different instances wherein they were willing to, or actually did, kill innocent Britannians. Like, doing that doesn't really help your cause. If anything, it gives the Britannian Empire more of an opportunity to vilify your entire group. So essentially what Lelouch wants is for them to make the government and armies their focus, not the innocent people of the nation who, for the most part, don't have shit to do with any of this. And look, quick aside, I know that plenty of Britannians are just pieces of shit, like just straight up assholes. But being an asshole doesn't exactly warrant the death penalty, you know? Anyway, Zero concludes his speech by channeling his inner Light Yagami, or Ryuzaki. Both, I guess, by saying,
"Take up your sword, fight for justice!"
And yeah, it's a nice, powerful speech, in my opinion. But Colin basically responds by saying, fuck all that noise.
Oh, please. That's all easy enough to say, isn't it? Hiding behind that mask. Why should we even trust you?
And from there, they all just kinda gang up on my boy Zero, with Yoshida and Oogi chiming in by asking him if he's gonna show them his face or not. But there's no way Lelouch is gonna expose himself like that, and so he offers them something else in exchange.
"I'll show you, but rather than my face, bear witness to my power. If I deliver to you the impossible, then I might have earned your trust."
And it's an interesting response, because really, what's more important? Knowing who I am or seeing what it is I can do for you? Like, y'all didn't know who I was back in Shinjuku, and yet you put your faith in me, and as a result, I got y'all out of that situation alive. So it's like, is who I am really all that relevant? But even still, because y'all are on the fence in regard to whether or not you should trust me, let me show you what I'm about once again by pulling off the impossible. And yeah, I think it was a great way of responding to them all. But anyway, from there we head to another sect of the Japanese resistance known as the Japanese Liberation Front, or JLF for short, where a group of soldiers and generals and, oh look, it's Toto. This is the guy who was named back in episode 2 by Prince Clovis. But more on that later. Anyway, this group of soldiers and generals are discussing the Kururugi situation, and it's a pretty busy conversation with a lot of people talking. But let's try to break it down piece by piece.
He killed the Prince of Britannia! Suzaku Kururugi should be treated as a hero!
But he's an honorary Britannian!
Prime Minister Kururugi was his father!
So, okay, from the jump, we can see that there are a lot of conflicting opinions on the matter, with some people automatically jumping to his defense, given how big of a deal it was that he killed a Britannian prince, something that no one else from the resistance has been able to do. However, at the same time, the fact that he's an honorary Britannian is an automatic knock against him, because that essentially means that he's renounced his nation in favor of siding with their oppressors. But honestly, that argument is kinda weak, because if he killed a prince, then I mean, wouldn't you just automatically assume that he was never aligned with Britannia? That he was, instead, just using his position as an honorary Britannian to get close to the prince so that he could kill him? But anyway, lastly, we have the person mentioning the fact that he's the Prime Minister's son, which I imagine is supposed to lend credence to the idea of Suzaku being a supporter of the Japanese resistance, which would make sense. I imagine most people would assume that the child of a world leader would share that leader's beliefs to some extent. Though, in this case, not so much. But yeah, something I do want to point out is the fact that immediately following that last line, someone says this.
The bastard gave up Japan! Our people don't know that about him!
And honestly, I'm not sure what he's talking about here. Like, using all the knowledge I have about the entire series, this line doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I guess, to be transparent about what happened to the Prime Minister, the story is that he committed seppuku in order to put an end to the conflict between Japan and Britannia. Like, his suicide signified their surrender. Now, granted, this likely came as a surprise to everyone at the time, given his call for do-or-die resistance, but to my understanding, they didn't hide the fact that he killed himself or the reason behind the suicide. So I'm not really understanding what this guy is talking about in regard to him giving up Japan. But anyway, from there we shift towards more relevant characters, i.e. characters who actually have names, as Major General Katase and Lieutenant Colonel Kusakabe discuss the Shinjuku incident.
The whole Shinjuku business was the work of Kozuki's group, wasn't it? Yes, sir. They're being led by a man named Oogi at the present.
So the mention of Kozuki's group is actually in reference to Naoto, because I don't think it's been brought up yet, but Naoto's, and by extension Colin's, Japanese last names are Kozuki. So this is basically just further establishing that Naoto was the one who formed that branch of the resistance. Also, I find it kind of interesting that they're aware of who Oogi is, because if that's the case, does that mean that they're in contact with him? Like, did they speak to him after the Shinjuku incident? Does he report to them in any capacity? Do they exchange resources, weapons, people? It's not entirely clear, to be honest. But anyway, from there they also bring up Suzaku's family and whether or not they've made any comments, to which it's revealed that they apparently stopped speaking to him once he joined the military, which, yeah, I could definitely understand that. Him becoming an honorary Britannian after everything that went down has gotta be a wild thing to see happen. But anyway, from there they turn their attention to Todo as they ask him what his thoughts are. And he straight up says,
"We should not become involved in this public execution."
And this is immediately met with backlash, as one of them actually calls him cowardly for not wanting to get involved, before claiming that he's Todo the Miracle Worker, which is a nickname for him, apparently. And in turn, he responds by saying,
"There is a difference between miracles and foolhardiness."
And I find his response interesting in a couple of ways. The first is one that I actually can't really get into right now, but it has to do with a specific plot point that'll be revealed later in regard to the Prime Minister's death. Because, mild spoiler alert, but Todo knows. Like, he knows. So I'm curious as to if that might not play a role in his decision not to act here. But secondly, I find it super interesting that he's referring to the idea of going to save Suzaku as being foolhardy. Because at this point, we already know that Lelouch is setting out to do that exact thing. So I feel like it serves to bump Lelouch up a peg to have him trying to pull off something that the JLF is describing as a miracle. Basically, it's like, if he pulls it off, not only will he earn the respect of Oogi's group, but he might also be setting himself up to garner the attention and possibly even the respect of even larger resistance groups. But anyway, from there we switch to Suzaku, who's being paid a visit by Lloyd.
Congratulations! Those two you asked me about weren't on the list of casualties.
Aw, well, that was nice of Lloyd, because he sure as hell did not have to take the time to go through all those reports, which, actually, when I think about it, that doesn't seem like something he would do. But it does seem like something Cecile would do. So yeah, I bet money that she did it and just had him come down and let Suzaku know because she knows that he'd have access to him. Which is probably also worth pointing out. Like, Lloyd is able to set up face-to-face time with a prisoner accused of murdering a prince. not just anyone could pull something like that off, but more on that later. Anyway, the news lifts Suzaku's spirits, but Lloyd's pretty quick to bring him right back down.
Not much luck on your end, though.
Before going on to tell him that while they're definitely going to give him a trial, no one actually cares one way or another about uncovering the truth behind what happened. Like, this is literally just pomp and circumstance. They're gonna trot his ass out there and make a whole damn spectacle out of this shit. But Suzaku, bless his heart, says this.
But the courts are where truth comes to light.
Man, if you don't get out of my face with that bullshit, you sound like an idiot. You are in jail for a crime that you did not commit, and the man you're talking to right now, your literal alibi for the crime you are being accused of, is telling you that you're cooked. And you're just like, truth and justice will prevail. Like, shut the fuck up, man. Damn. But when Lloyd reiterates the fact that this is quite literally a kangaroo court, Suzaku ends up saying,
if that's how the world works, then so be it. I've no regret.
Which sounds crazy, right? That he's basically just like, screw it then, I guess I'll just die. Like, that's not typically the response you would expect from a kid his age, you know? And it's really interesting because we have another example to pull from someone who was in a kind of similar situation just a few days ago. Lelouch.
Now I'm about to die, before I've had a chance to do a single thing with my life. It's gone in a heartbeat. Nunnally!
Like, the fact that he was about to be executed over some bullshit that he had not done led to him panicking. He was terrified, but in comparison, Suzaku is just fine. Like, I guess one could argue that maybe the reality of it all just hasn't sunken in yet, but honestly, that's probably not what's happening here. And we'll, fucking hell, we will talk more about this in a future video. Alright, so when we get back from the break, we jump right into Suzaku being transferred to his court-martial. And it's playing out pretty much exactly the way Jeremiah and Diethard had planned, with the roads lined with Britannians, eagerly awaiting the arrival of the man who murdered their prince. Anyway, as the broadcaster speaks on the situation, we see that the members of the student council are currently watching the broadcast, and so is Nunnally, though it's worth noting that she's not tuning into it with everyone else, which makes sense. I mean, she knows Suzaku, and she is definitely worried about him, and that would probably come across as kind of weird if she seemed upset at the fact that the person accused of killing their prince is being escorted to his court-martial. But anyway, from there we turn our attention to Diethard for a moment as we see him in his element doing his job, making sure that everything stays organized during the broadcast. And for a second, it looks like he's enjoying his role in all of this. However, the moment he turns off his headset, he ends up saying,
"What a circus this is. And I'm as corrupt as any of them."
Which goes to show us that he's not buying into any of this bullshit. He sees all of this for what it really is, a farce, a bad joke. But even in knowing that, he's unwilling to do anything to try and change it, or the role that he plays in it. Instead, he just goes with the flow while actively reaping the benefits of this broken system, which is why he says that he's just as corrupt as the rest of them. And I actually really like the unique viewpoint that he offers as a character, a Britannian without any sort of rank or nobility who actually acknowledges just how shitty and corrupt everything is, but also isn't actively interested in doing a damn thing about it. Well, not yet, anyway. But yeah, from there the scene transitions to Lloyd and Cecile. Except, before it does that, it actually lands on this static image of a young girl, which is, I mean, without context, just feels super random, but I guess I'll just go ahead and tell y'all that her name is Kaguya Sumeragi, and she'll be important later. But like I said, we check in on Lloyd and Cecile, and Cecile is actually kind of pissed, saying it's insane that they know that this man is innocent, but they can't do anything about it, because apparently the courts have ruled that their testimony is inadmissible, which is just nuts. Like, bruh, what do you mean? I bet there's audio of the conversations they had while he was in the cockpit of that nightmare. You could probably track the exact location of where the Lancelot was at the time of the murder. Like, it's just so silly how they're able to sweep this shit under the rug like that. But whatever. At this point, I'm just beating off a dead horse, so wait, no.
Voices of scorn, growing ever louder, raining their judgment down on a terrorist.
honestly, I wish we could hear what they're saying, because I feel like it would serve to make the moment even more impactful. And I say that mostly because they do that in a later episode, and it really serves to give you an idea of how the people are feeling.
I hope that bitch burns in hell!
More on that in the future.
No way the three of them can pull this off on their own.
Oh, fuck you, Tamaki. This guy's so damn annoying. Now, for context, just like we checked in with the kids over at Ashford and our dynamic duo in charge of the Lancelot, we also take a second to check in on Oogi's resistance group, who, by the way, pretty much all decided not to work with Zero. In fact, only 2 of them decided to help my boy out, Colin and Oogi. And instead of actually helping out, Tamaki's just here talking shit. Like, my guy, are you hoping they fail? Cause them not pulling this off could very likely mean that they would die. And you're just over here saying that there's no way they can do it? Fucking loser ass energy, bro.
Right. No need to turn back. The die is cast.
So something I thought was really cool was the fact that as we've been checking in on all of these different characters and getting their reactions to this procession, it's all been intercut with Lelouch putting on his costume and kind of stealing his resolve in regard to what he now has to do. Because this is going to be a huge moment for him. A monumental, game-changing kind of moment. Because, to be clear, he is moments away from revealing himself to the world, really. And one thing I really like about it is that the show makes a point to show him sweating, which makes sense. Like, it's a big deal. And honestly, so is him sweating here. Because since he's gotten his geass, we've only ever seen him sweat one other time. And funnily enough, it also involved Suzaku. But it was when he was dealing with the Lancelot, which was an extremely intense situation. But since then, nothing. Putting a gun in his brother's face and blowing his brains out? Nope. Geass suddenly stopped working at arguably the worst possible time? I ain't tripping. Switchblade to his motherfucking wrist, cool as the other side of the pillow. And that's the thing. Seeing him calm and measured in all of those situations really serves to put into perspective how high he must feel the stakes are right now. And in turn, by showing this to us, it lets us know that shit's about to go down.
Acting Consul Jeremiah, vehicle approaching the main highway from 3rd. We just let it through as you instructed, but it's Prince Clovis's car.
Just let him through to us.
So as the procession is making its way down the highway, we see Colin driving what appears to be the prince's personal car. And I say appears to be because in reality, it's not actually his car. It's just some hunk of junk that they threw together so that Jeremiah and company would be less likely to immediately blow them right off the road. And to Lelouch's credit, it does actually work. Mostly due to the fact that Jeremiah is just itching to kill some 11s.
Hey, they stopped. It's just a coincidence.
Yeah, but he said Jeremiah would try and make some sort of stand about it.
Coincidence!
Bro, seriously, do you want them to die? Like, in all seriousness, are you banking on them dying? Because what the hell is with this energy? Like, look, I can understand if it was just Zero out there, because realistically, you have no allegiance to the guy. I mean, he did save your life, which should count for something, I would imagine, but if you want to be a petty little bitch about it, then fine, that's your prerogative. But my guy, your leader, and your previous leader's little sister are out there right now. And hell, she's just a kid. I really do not understand why you're acting like this.
It's Prince Clovis's personal transport.
Hope they can't tell it's fake.
Okay, so I know I already brought up the fact that it's fake, but I really just wanted to take a second to point out just how busted this bad boy is. Like, they have duct tape in the footwell of the car. The odometer is just busted to hell. Whatever this thing is has just completely detached. And even the damn windshield is also being held together with duct tape. It's actually insane how they cobbled this piece of shit together in a single day.
Come out of there!
I am Zero.
And I just love how dramatic this boy is. Out here stunning like Katniss Everdeen with them flames. A level of detail to presentation that rivals my boy Megamind. I mean, say what you will about this kid, but he damn sure knows how to hold a crowd captive. literally. But more on that in a second. So before he shows off that little doohickey, we do go around and get reactions from everyone. And while I'm not going to go over everyone's reaction, I did want to take special note of two of them. One of whom is Toto. And look, he doesn't say anything, but I just want to note that we can see him intently looking towards the screen. And I bring this up for two reasons. One being the fact that when he was speaking with the group earlier, he had his eyes closed for the majority of the conversation. And when he did briefly open them, he never made eye contact with anyone. Like the shadow covering most of his face would indicate that he had his head pointed down, whereas most everyone else was looking straight ahead. And I know, it's not a big thing, but it'll make a little more sense when we get to my second reason in a few minutes. Now, the second person I want to take note of is actually Diethard, because his initial reaction is that of him being pretty unimpressed, if not more so confused.
Zero? What do you mean, like nothing?
And the reason I'm pointing out the fact that it's such a tame reaction is because, well, I guess mild spoilers, but for the record, this man goes on to become one of the biggest glazers of this whole damn series, y'all. Like, if meat riding was a sport, my man would be going for the gold in the Olympics, you feel me? But anyway, I guess I'll also point out Colin's reaction, because after Zero makes himself known, but before he escalates things, Jeremiah drops a load of nightmares on him. And yeah, they're officially surrounded. And as such, Colin is freaking the hell out. And the reason I want to take note of this is because, one, it definitely makes sense as a response. Like, this is absolutely terrifying. But two, I bring it up because this really sells the importance of a mask. And I mean, obviously she's not really wearing a full one, but Lelouch is. Like, I imagine he's having a similar response underneath that mask right now, just sweating his ass off at the fact that this really was a ballsy move on his part. But the thing is, we don't know that. Like, outside of a few shots of his mouth, we don't actually see what he looks like under that mask. And it's not like they can't show us. I mean, they did earlier in this episode, but I feel what the show is trying to do here is present Zero to us the way the world is seeing him right now. Confident, cool, totally in control of everything that's going on. And I think that's pretty cool.
You never saw inside this thing, so you assume it holds poison gas. And
I gotta give it to him. That was a smart play. In theory. In reality, that thing blew up, right? And that aside, are we also saying that you went back to get it? When? How did you move it? Who helped you? What the whatever. Anyway, as far as this scene goes, Lelouch has essentially got Jeremiah by the balls at this point, because like he said, he has no idea what this thing was actually originally holding. The only thing that can mess it up is if someone who did know the truth told him about it.
Wait, you don't understand?
Boy, have you lost your mind, cause I'll help you find it.
Like, seriously, what the fuck is wrong with you? They're out here trying to save your life and you're gonna try and snitch? Like, man, I wanted to focus on the fact that they put a shock collar on your ass, which is all kinds of messed up and dehumanizing. But the fact that you were about to snitch on the man trying to save your life, man, where's the remote at for this thing? Cause I'm gonna need y'all to turn this shit all the way up.
He's taken every Britannian here hostage, and he's done it without them even knowing it!
This shit is so wild to me, because he's bluffing so hard, and yet it's super effective. I also just love the fact that in every aspect of this situation, Jeremiah has done this to himself. He wanted to make this a public procession. He wanted to line the streets with good patriotic Britannians, and he wanted all the motherfucking smoke if someone tried to roll up on it. Now look where that got you, bro.
Unit 6, bring up the sound and get that camera right in his face.
It's too hairy out here.
Amateurs.
So here's the first time that we see Diethard getting even remotely stirred about anything. Because for the most part, he's just been chill and pretty much apathetic about things. But his curiosity as to who this Zero person is and what they're planning to do has him willing to actually go out there himself to get the footage.
What are your demands?
This for Oogi.
He's charged with high treason for murdering a prince. I can't hand him over.
You're mistaken, Jeremiah. The man who killed Clovis was myself.
Fucking Lelouch, man. That turn to the camera is definitely giving Reverse Flash vibes.
It was me, Barry.
And honestly, Diethard's reaction mirrors my own, because I just love this shit so much, man. Like, everything about Lelouch is just pure theater. Every move he's made while wearing this costume has been a performance, and I just love it. Like, honestly, the fact that he's on the student council and not in the drama club might actually be a crime. But, you know, when you think about it, it honestly makes a lot of sense that he has such a flair for the dramatic. I mean, he's a prince, and he grew up in an environment where everyone was regal and grandiose with the way they spoke and acted. Hell, a perfect example is his brother Clovis and the way he was clutching his chest and looking like he was damn near about to cry while giving that speech back in episode 1. Like, it's just something that's instilled in them from a young age, I imagine.
This is all one big performance to him.
So I want to focus on Diethard for a moment, because we actually see him really smiling here, like genuinely giddy with excitement. Like he's watching this all unfold, and he knows that it's a performance, but to him, there's just something so mesmerizing about it. Like, if I had to guess, I would say that it's the fact that it goes against the established norm. Like, everything that's preceded this has been very mundane. I mean, even with the prince's death, while likely surprising, still just resulted in him having to slap together a generic sort of memorial program. Like, it wasn't anything groundbreaking. But this? Some dude in a flamboyant costume showing up and interrupting this prisoner transfer by not only demanding an exchange, but also revealing to everyone that he is the one that actually committed the crime. Like, in a matter of minutes, he's managed to create an atmosphere that's equal parts astonishment and trepidation, with hundreds of people here and thousands of people across the country, or hell, the world, hanging on his every word. Like, that's, yeah, I could see how this might get someone like Diethard riled up. But yeah, before we move on, I do want to point out one more thing, and it's actually in relation to Toto, because we end up checking back in on the JLF for a second, and we see that after Zero claims to be Prince Clovis's murderer, Toto has completely turned its attention to the TV. Like, at the beginning, he wasn't all that interested in what was going on. He was very just kind of whatever about it. But then Zero showed up and he was kind of starting to peek a little bit. Like, what's going on over there? And now he's just fully invested. Like, who the hell is this guy? And it's just interesting seeing how Lelouch has just commanded everyone's attention. Like, all eyes on him, for real.
He'll pay the price for mucking the crown!
Careful! You don't wish the public to learn of Orange, do you?
Now, you may be wondering, Orange? What's that about? And that's a fair question. I mean, it must be a big deal, right? Especially since Lelouch follows it up by saying,
if I die, it'll all go public.
So it's gotta be something huge. Some major dirt that he found out about Jeremiah or something, right? And look, you're not alone in wondering what it is, as made evident by these soldiers talking amongst themselves about it.
Orange, what's he talking about? I don't know.
So clearly it's something that's so well hidden that seemingly no one knows anything about it, which, interestingly enough, also includes Jeremiah.
What are you talking about? What is this?
So look, to be clear, Orange is actually nothing. Like, literally nothing. The thing Zero is referencing is as real as this thing being a container filled with poison gas. It's just another bluff. But while the ramifications for Zero's bluff regarding the container will be very temporary, the ramifications surrounding Orange will persevere for a lifetime. Because what happens next is,
you'll do everything in your power to let us go.
Okay, so pause. Before we continue, I'm actually going to take a second to do a bit of a rewind here, because I want to provide a little extra context to this scene. And the reason I want to do that is because, as you could probably imagine, this scene is finna mess Jeremiah's whole life up. But what if I told you that it's actually a little worse than it might initially appear? Because he's not just messing up his own life in this scene, he is actually simultaneously screwing over Valletta too. And that's not something that's made obvious when you're just watching the show. which is why I introduced to you stage 4.33, which seems to take place like right after that meeting that they had with Diethard. And it's basically just the two of them having a private conversation about their respective futures in the dawn of the pureblood supremacy, which is giving ick, but what's really important about this scene is the fact that Valletta mentions that she and Jeremiah don't have the same upbringing, in the sense that Jeremiah was born into nobility, whereas Valletta is a knight of honor, which means that she was technically born a commoner. And the reason I bring this up is because Jeremiah tells her,
"With the dawn of the pureblood supremacy, I'll see that you are granted the title of Baroness. Knight of Honor is a single-generation sham title. You will be a true noblewoman, and that will be passed on to your descendants."
So, yeah, it's never actually stated in the show, but the act of convicting Suzaku was also supposed to eventually lead to Valletta becoming a true noblewoman. But, as you could probably imagine, things are not going to turn out the way they think. But wait, there's more. This time in regard to Jeremiah himself, as he goes on to say,
"I can't take any more disgrace. Since I've been involved here, I failed twice to save a member of the royal family from being slain."
And here it's revealed that he was actually one of the guards for Lady Marianne. Yes, that Marianne, Lelouch's mother. And he essentially goes on to talk about the night she died and how he failed to protect her. And by extension, her children, Lelouch and Nunnally. And I mean, dude even breaks down and starts crying.
"Prince Clovis, Lady Marianne, please laugh at my worthlessness."
And I mean, awkwardness of that line delivery aside, we can see that this shit has really affected him. We can see that aside from all the racism and xenophobia and genocidal tendencies and framing people for crimes they didn't commit and trying to usurp control and general douchebaggery, he's a sensitive man. But yeah, I bring all of this up to just kind of provide some additional context to the scene that we're about to watch, so that y'all fully understand what's at stake for not only Jeremiah, but Valletta as well. Also, just real quick, this was the slide mechanism that Lelouch was referring to earlier in this episode. So yeah. Anyway.
"You there, release the prisoner!"
What on earth are you doing, my lord?
"Get that man over here! This is an order!"
So, as expected, Jeremiah has become a slave to the geass. And with the added perspective of what Valletta has at stake here too, you get a better understanding of how insane this must be for her. Like, my guy, what the actual hell are you doing? What about Prince Clovis? What about Lady Marianne? What about me? Like, you promised me a legacy to leave behind for me and my people. Bruh, like, what the hell is going on? And then it gets even worse because once the exchange happens and we see Oogi get in position, which I'm realizing that I didn't actually point out, but Oogi is actually underneath this bridge in an MR1 nightmare, which is surprisingly a 4th generation nightmare, just one that's not made for combat. And I think we actually got a glimpse of this one in the previous episode when Oogi and Colin were talking on the phone. But yeah, once the exchange is made and Oogi gets in position, Zero activates the container, which unleashes the poison gas, or what these people assume is poison gas. In reality, it's just colored smoke or something. But anyway, the reason I said it gets worse from Valletta's perspective is because as she tries to stop them from escaping, this happens.
Cowardly 11! Lord Jeremiah, what are you—
You heard me! Stand down!
Like, not only is he ordering them to stand down, but he is actively attacking anyone who fails to comply. Like, that's gotta be so disorienting for Valletta in this situation. Like, we had this intimate moment where you expressed your regret regarding your past failures, and how this was essentially a sort of redemption for you. And yet here you are actively making everything worse. Like, these people have released what could very well be poison gas, and you're just actively trying to help them get away. But yeah, the three of them jump off, and Oogi ends up using the slash Harkins of the MR1 to launch a sort of net that catches them and allows them to fall into this sort of cargo bin on the train tracks. And I thought it was kind of cool how when Oogi used the slash Harkins, the force from the launch sort of knocked the MR1 off balance, kind of showcasing how frail it is in comparison to some of the other units we've seen.
It worked! Now we can...
And the fragility of that nightmare is exemplified by that scene, as just a few rounds from that assault rifle tears that thing to shreds.
To shreds, you say?
And honestly, for a second, it really seems like this mission might be a failure, because this guy, Lord Kuehl from earlier, basically has them dead to rights. Like, it really seems like it's a wrap, until you remember that Lelouch and the gang have a nightmare on their side too.
Kuehl, are you going to follow orders or not? All units, do I make myself clear?
Do everything in your power to help them get away!
And it's just... damn. Like, this man is ruined in a way that will be difficult, if not fucking impossible, to recover from. Like, not only did you let the person accused of killing Prince Clovis go, a person who, I'll remind you, you claimed had ample motive and who apparently left their fingerprints on the murder weapon, not only did you let them go, but you also then let the person who confessed to the crime on national television, mind you, go as well. In addition to that, you then engaged in combat with two of your subordinates, even going so far as to aim your weapon at them in an attempt to help the accused murderers escape. And you did this immediately after they released what you believe to be poison gas in an area full of civilians. And let me make sure I got this straight. All of this stemmed from the fact that he threatened to tell everyone about this orange thing. Is that right? Okay, you, my friend, are fucked. Royally fucked. Get it? Because you're a noble. I'm sorry, I'll stop. And look, given the information provided in his backstory, I want to feel bad for him. But low-key, you kind of reap what you sow, man. So I guess for now, we'll just have to wait and see what happens to old Orange Boy. But anyway, from there we transition to a resistance hideout where the group, minus Suzaku and Zero, are having a conversation.
Man, I didn't really think you could do it.
Yeah.
That's crap.
We've always thought that a full-on war with Britannia wasn't a possibility at all. But maybe with him, it is.
So, a couple things. One, Tamaki, if you don't shut your ass up, like, why are you even here? What purpose do you serve besides pissing me the hell off? Anyway, secondly, I like the change in tone from everyone else. How we can see that they're slowly coming around to the idea that this guy might be the real deal. And I think that can especially be said in regard to Oogi, who's made it abundantly clear that this guy did something that literally no one else could have. He stood before the Britannians, essentially unarmed, and managed to bitch them out completely on what was likely national television. Dude did to them what L did to Kidda. Like, that shit was incredible. And in regard to the broadcast part, I mean, we know for a fact that everyone was tuned in, be they Britannian or Japanese. Like, at this point, the world knows of his existence and the miracle that he just pulled off. It's wild. But yeah, from there we switch over to our two boys who have been reunited once again. Though, at the moment, only one of them actually knows it. But before we get into what they're saying, I just want to point out how things are framed here. How Lelouch is standing atop this rubble, where the light from the moon is shining down directly on him. Not to mention the fact that he's at an elevated point so that Suzaku has to literally look up to him. Like, it's all very purposeful. And normally I would say that that was just something that the writers and animators did for dramatic effect. But interestingly enough, in a sort of, I don't know, meta way, it also just feels like something that Lelouch took in mind when coming in here. Like, we all know that he's all about presentation, so him being situated there feels like something he personally thought about when he entered the room.
It looks like they treated you rather roughly. Britannia is rotten. If you wish to bring change to this world, then join me.
So really, this would be an ideal situation for Lelouch in a lot of ways. For one, I mean, flipping Suzaku, the son of the former prime minister who originally opted to become an honorary Britannian after the death of his father, like, the optics of that would be insanely good. Like, behold, the son of the former prime minister, Suzaku Kurugi, once lured in by the false promises of the Britannian Empire, he is now seeing their true face, one of treachery and false promises of fairness and equality. Now he, we, like many other Japanese, have chosen to rise against their oppressors and fight for justice. Or something to that effect. But yeah, in addition to that, the other benefit of having him on his side is the fact that he'd have someone he could actually open up to. Because I guarantee that he would tell Suzaku who he is, because he knows that Suzaku would never rat him out. I mean, he already kind of proved that back in episode 1 and episode 2. So yeah, I imagine that the idea of working with his friend seems kind of exciting. Like he knows that together, there's nothing that they can't accomplish. The only thing is, Suzaku has zero interest in working with— wait, no, turn me on.
Any ends gained through contemptible means aren't worth anything.
So basically what Suzaku is saying here is that he takes issue with the way that Zero operates, which is kind of crazy, but let me try to explain. He mentions the fact that Zero was the one that killed Prince Clovis, and the fact that he tricked everyone in that crowd tonight into believing that he had released poison gas. And apparently, according to Suzaku, these things are contemptible, which okay, this is a little rough, because my guy, Zero, for the purposes of this conversation, has killed one person and scared a few hundred. Meanwhile, you are low-key on the side that ordered the annihilation of an entire city to hide one man's secret. Like, bro, how hard did that guy kick you in the head?
This nation, it can be changed for the better, and from within.
Or that's just crazy.
No, for real, because what are you talking about? Like, the last week alone should be more than enough to tell you that this shit is beyond repair. But, okay, let's look at this a different way. His father, apparently, died with the hope that his death would put an end to the conflict. Right? So, if we think of it like that, one could make the argument that his staunch belief in reformation as opposed to confrontation might stem from that. Though, just to be clear, we will be revisiting this scene in the future once we have more context on things, as we will be doing with many of the scenes so far regarding Suzaku. So, let's just put a pin in this for now.
My court-martial begins in an hour.
Are you mad? The only reason they're giving you a trial is to find you guilty!
If I don't go, they'll start cracking down on 11s and honorary Britannians.
So, look, him going back is a wild decision until you get to that last part. Because he kind of has a point. Did he do it? No. Will they possibly kill him anyway? Maybe, but from his perspective, if he doesn't go back, then it really could just cause a lot of problems for a whole bunch of people who don't have anything to do with it. And while Lelouch probably doesn't care too much about that, and would arguably find a way to use it to his advantage by showing just how bad the Britannians are for doing it, Suzaku does actually care, because as much as his actions might seem contradictory, he does care about the people of Japan. 100%. So yeah, using the fact that they could suffer on his behalf as a premise, him wanting to go back is actually a really noble thing to do.
But you'll die!
I don't mind.
We will definitely have a longer discussion about that in the future.
Don't be an idiot!
An old friend of mine always used to tell me that. He'd say I was a fool.
And I really like this moment because Lelouch doesn't actually speak again after Suzaku says this. Like, Suzaku knows this man a little too well. Like, he compared Zero to Lelouch after a, 30-second conversation? So, yeah, with Suzaku making it clear that he doesn't fuck with Zero, I love the fact that Lelouch was apprehensive about saying anything else lest he risk exposing himself. And yeah, from there, Suzaku leaves. But I will note that he does say this before he goes.
Even so, I thank you for saving me.
Which I thought was kind of nice. It was very polite of him, and I just wanted to point it out.
Kururugi has made contact with the authorities. It's very possible Kururugi will be found innocent and acquitted. For a legal perspective on it.
So it looks like our boy Suzaku will live to see another day, and I'm sure he's super happy about that. However, if nothing else, at least Nunnally is happy for him. Probably even happier to have it be confirmed that Suzaku definitely didn't kill her brother. And yeah, with all of that being said, wait, what?
Sayako?
Wait, what? Anyway, that's the end of this video, but as always, I want to give a shout out to those over on our Patreon. Starting from the top, I want to give a special thanks to our official overanalyzers: Asia, Cavarax XE, Chicken Wugget, C-Mart, Cody for Now, Croy Raiden, Emilia, I Am the Blonde Asshole, and Joey Hellbig. I also want to give a big shout out to our remarkable researchers: Arrow Falcon Green, Game and Alchemist, Legend Dragon, Pellets, Staff of the Crystal Serpent, The Best, Trinity Schiffer, Tyrant Link, Vanillian, and Yggdrasil. And lastly, thank you to all of our invaluable investigators and our admirable assessors, who I'm actually just going to let scroll on the top and bottom of the screen while I do my outro. So if you liked this video, then consider dropping a like. If you really liked it, then consider subscribing. And if you loved it and want to see more sooner, like the people whose names you're seeing on the screen, then come on over to the Patreon. The videos for both Part 5 of Code Geass and Part 31 of Death Note are currently live. Link is in the description. Anyway, that's all for this time. Until next time, friends. Peace.